Okay, so all right, so we're in game. Okay, so this is the thing. So the thing is, if two people came to you, right, or a person came to you and they say, "What is this idea about marriage? Why should we get married? What's the concept of marriage? Where did it even come from? Like, what is it? Is it like a Bible thing? Like, what is this idea of marriage?" And then the whole concept of like this whole union of man and woman, right? Like, where does this whole idea come from? Is it connected? What's this like? If you had to take someone through the process of that idea, how would you do it? Right. And so that's kind of like what we're going to explore today is this idea of being able to understand this process of like what is marriage according to the Torah, right? And I think once we see that, we'll see a lot of things with the world. Okay, so I want to start with. But these are all concepts that, God willing, we'll keep refining them, but these are concepts you'll be able to help people with, you know what I mean? Like to really talk these things out because, we got to figure it out, right? Okay, okay. So, all right, so we're going to the beginning, right? Okay, so we're going to the beginning. So these are the days of creation, right? So, so on the sixth day, right? Hold on. God, this is so great. Okay, all right. So this is wait, I don't know, maybe 20 verses. Yeah, it could be 20 verses. All right, for because I mean it's so enticing. But anyways, it's like this, right? These are the days of creation. Okay, so this is the fifth day of creation, right? He says, and there was the evening, and then there was morning, a fifth day, right? So now we're going into the sixth day, right? So the sixth day of creation, right? It says Vayomer Elohim Totsei Haaretz Nefesh Chaya Lamina. So he says, let there bring forth. He's God said, let the earth bring forth every kind of living creature, right? Cattle, creepy things, wild beasts of all kind, and it was so, right? And then it says, so the point is like in this stage of the Torah, what God is doing is literally going through every stage of the main kingdoms on planet Earth and how these kingdoms basically came into existence, right? So like we're learning about the animal kingdom right now, right? Before earlier, they were learning about the sea creatures, right? So all these things we're learning this process of how things evolve. And you also got to keep in mind too, all the other religions in the world cannot. All their religions is based off of this premise, right? Of the 7 days of creation, the 7 day God rest, the whole thing, right? So it's just an interesting point. Okay, so he brings forth the animal kingdom, right? So here's a key point right here. Here's the beginning of us. It says, "Vayomer Elohim na'aseh Adam b'tzelemenu kidmotenu." So he says, and God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness." Right? It says, "Year do beat God Hayat," and he says after all, and he says, and they shall rule over the seas and the birds in the sky and the cattle and the whole earth and all the creepy things, all things that were just there, right? Says it says Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzelem b'tzelem. So it says, and God created mankind in the divine image. We'll figure out what that means, the whole thing. Elohim bara oto zachir. And he says he created them in the image of God, creating them male and female. All right, so this is the beginning. Vayivarek otam Elohim, vayomer lachem Elohim. Is the key words right here. Peru vohu, veru, right? So what does those words mean? He says, and God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, be fertile and increase, be fruitful and multiply. Could be understood that way. So here's the beginning of the whole sugya of the concept of marriage. Because God never says marriage per se, right? He just says puravuhu, right? That's what he says. He says, be fruitful and multiply, right? And he gives that commandment to man, but he gives it to other kingdoms too, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It's not just exclusive to us. But the difference between us is that we have this idea of free will, right? So the question is like this, right? And this is the investigation process. When it says Vayivarech Otam, and God blessed them, but Vayivarech Otam Elohim, and God blessed them, Vayomer Lechem, he said to them, Elohim, God, Piravuhu, right? So this is the issue right here. It's two words. Peru, right, which is be fruitful. Uva'u, right? Uva'u, and to increase, be multiple. Now, being multiple makes sense, right? Have a lot of babies. But what is this idea of fruitful, right? What is this idea of being fruitful, right? And so this idea of being fruitful is this idea of being complete. And so this concept of being complete is the beginning of the understanding of having a sensitivity in a process to engage in this process of being fruitful and multiply, right? And so the concept of union between man and woman is to fulfill this mitzvah. This is the first commandment given to humanity ever. Like, this is the first commandment, to be fruitful and multiply. But the question is, what is it to be fruitful? And so the sages understand a fruit is something that's complete, right? And this idea of fertility, in fruitful is talking about a certain vitality of life, right? And so the union between man and woman is supposed to create children who are complete, right? Children who are well-rounded, children that fear Hashem, children that are holy, right? Children that extend from the tree of life, right? Like that's the idea. And so from here, we're going to start to investigate this idea of how the sages understand this idea of marriage, right? And so we're going to go to our brother, the Rambam. He's a very interesting character. Well, I mean, humongous Rav, but when people start saying it. Anyways, so let's keep going. So we're going to go to Rambam. And we're just going to touch on a little bit of it. Rambam says like this, Kodema Matana Torah. So he says, before giving of the Torah, before the Torah was given, when a man would meet a woman in the marketplace, and he and she would decide to marry, he would bring her home, conduct relations in private, and thus make her his wife. Right. So he said the normal way people had relationships, and you still see it today, but the way people have relationships, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, and I'm aroused, you're aroused. Let's go somewhere secluded. Let's be together, and then from there we'll just kind of like be together. You know what I mean? Type of a thing, right? And that's how people had wives. But he's saying, but once the Torah was given, the Jews were commanded that a man desired a woman, he must acquire her as a wife in the presence of witnesses. Only after this does she become his wife. This is alluded to in Deuteronomy. A man takes a wife and has relations with her. So they're saying after the Torah, it just wasn't about animal instincts, right? Because once the Torah was revealed, there was a certain set of rules that existed for the Jewish people, right? For the Israelites, right? Once the Torah was given, it said, hey, we are a society of God, right? And so because we are a society of God, we have to live in God's order. So by us, the other nations, hey, they see each other, they just start mating. You know what I mean? They're like, hey, I'm aroused, you're aroused, no different than the animals. But for us, We can't do that because the woman in our environment is so important. She's vital. She produces life. She produces the perpetuation of God's will in this world, right? So therefore, when I marry her, it's not just I'm going to cohabitate with her. I'm going to be responsible for her. I'm going to have a certain set of obligations to her, right? I'm going to have to give to her, right? And I'm going to have to let the whole community know what those obligations are for me, right? And this is the difference between a woman of Israel and a woman of the other nations. Those things aren't together. Like, how many people do we know that never got married? They just lived together. And it's not to put it down. I'm not here to put it down, but I'm just saying we have to understand the difference between the nations of the world and Israel, right? So if I'm going to teach someone about marriage, I got to be able to understand, like, hey, number one, the Torah commands all of creation to be fruitful and multiply. But only does the nation of Israel have this system of how a man brings a woman into his life past just his sexual desire, right? Ve'likukina elu mitzavat aseh shel Torah hem uve'echad mishta losha divrim. So he says like this process of acquisition, one of the Torah, it fulfills one of the Torah process. So this idea of a man acquiring a woman, when he means acquiring a woman, what it means is that a woman, in essence, you know, when she feels safe, she would give herself to this contractual relationship where now this man is responsible for her, right? So that's this process. He's acquiring her trust, right? Not her. He's not buying. He's acquiring her trust. So he says this process of acquisition fulfills one of the Torah positive precepts. The process of acquiring a wife is formalized in three ways: the transfer of money to her, through the transfer of a formal document, and through sexual relations. So he says the effectiveness of sexual relations and the transfer of a formal document have their origins in the Torah itself. While effectiveness, the transfer of money, is a rabbinical origin. Okay, so let's understand. Okay, so so there's three ways for a man to acquire a woman, meaning to win her trust. He can do it through kesef, meaning money, right? Like showing he's invested into her financially. Two is a star, a contract, which is stating his responsibilities to her. And three, they can have sexual relations with the awareness of the community that they're secluded together and they're binding themselves in that way, meaning there's witnesses that say, okay, they're secluded together and now they're together and they have their understanding between them, right? What we do is when we get married, we do all three, right? So, like, for example, when I got married, so one thing would be kesef, right? What would be the kesef? That's me giving her the ring, right? When I give, when I give my wife the ring, that is the sign of the money transfer, right? Meaning that she likes this ring, she wants it, she accepts it, the witnesses see it, everyone sees me giving it to her, she has accepted this ring, right? Then there's a ketubah, right? Which is a contract, which states all of my responsibilities to her, and it's read in front of the entire congregation of people that's there, right? And then the fourth part is sexual relations. Now, the thing is, sexual relations as we defined it, because no one's going to be in the room when someone's having sex, is being secluded. So if you go to a Jewish wedding, what happens is after I give her the ring and everyone sees it and the judges verify that the ring has a certain value, then after there's another rabbi there holding a contract and he's reading the entire contract, right? And he's going from there. And then from there, after all that's done, me and her, we walk together with everyone at the wedding following us, and we walk into a room secluded together and we lock the door. Right now, obviously, later on that evening, we'll actually have the physical intercourse. But the point is just saying, in terms of seclusion together, that's also an omission. So this process is called erusin and kiddushin, right? So there's two parts to it. Kiddushin is her, in essence, like accepting, the like the Kedushin is basically her agreeing to be my wife, and Erusin is our process of her actually entering my house, right? So it's a whole process. So and it says, and she's Mikadeshes, right? Vekin Zan. You know what's crazy too? I just tell you this. When I was going through the wedding, when I was like standing under the chuppah, it's a whole process, it's a very powerful thing. And I was standing under there, and I learned all the Gemara for like in Kedushin. That's where the Gemara goes into all the details of the wedding and why it's like this and how to understand it. And we learned that for almost a year, right? So by the time I was like under the chuppah with my wife, I was literally going through all the conversations of the rabbis in my head, looking at everything happening. It was like a crazy experience. So anyway, so it says he says Vei Kivan She Nikanet Ha'isha. So he says once this process of acquisition has been formalized and the woman has become Ikadeshes, she's considered to be married, even though the marriage bond has not been consummated and she has not entered her husband's house. She should anyone other than her husband engage in sexual relations with her, he is liable for execution by the court. If her husband desired to divorce her, he would have to compose a get. So he says, Kodima matan Torah haya adam pogea isha bashuk im ratza. So he says, and before the Torah was given, when a man would meet a woman in the marketplace and he would desire her, he would give her a payment, engage in relations with her whenever he desired, and he departed. Such a woman is referred to as a harlot. When the Torah was given, relations with a harlot became forbidden. As Deuteronomy states, there should not be a harlot amongst the children of Israel. Therefore, a person who has relations with a woman for the sake of lust without a kedushin receives lashes as prescribed by the Torah because he has relations with a harlot. Kol she'asar be'atod Torah ve'chayav ve'al be'atod. So he says, whenever it is forbidden to engage in relations with the Torah, relations from the Torah, whenever it is forbidden to engage in relations from the Torah, and engaging in relations is liable for koret, separation, mention. Like it says, the other areas, if a person lives with his mother, sister, daughter, type of thing. But this is the key point. The basis of how we deal with the Jewish woman in marriage is from the basis of her not being treated like a harlot because it's forbidden, right? So back in the day, he says, hey, back in the day, people would just, hey, give a woman money, they would have relations. Could you imagine the world before Torah? Like, we can't even imagine it now. Like, we can't even imagine what that like world looked like. And I have stuff we could show that gives us an insight to that. But the point is just to say that that the reality of the situation is saying this is how the world functions. And so the Torah forbid that for the Jew. It didn't forbid it for the whole world. It forbid it for the Israelite. And so the point is saying from here is saying that so the whole system of the marriage itself, the contract, the monies, the relationship, the communities, the witnesses, is that we don't do that, right? That we're not going to be, that the Jewish woman is never treated as a harlot. Hold on one second. All right. Any thoughts, reflections on this marriage stuff?
Um, where it said that they met in a marketplace, that's interesting to me because like the marketplace is a place where you would, acquire something. So it's almost as if like each side was pretty much saying like, what can you give me? Because if you go to the marketplace, you're trying to acquire something. So it's like, what can you give me and what can you give me? So it's like there was no consideration for, holiness or consideration for anything else but like a selfish desire. That's kind of what I kind of got from the marketplace part.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the thing is like this. It's a critique on society, right? We could sit back and we could look at it and say, like, you know what? Truthfully, the concept of marriage was really for Israel,
Mhm.
right? Because the concept of marriage was literally to make sure that we didn't go over what the Torah has forbidden us by being with a harlot. So we have to make sure that we have to treat our women in the complete opposite of that. So the same desire that we may have, that the non Israelite, the non Jew has, that desire that they have, that we may have a similar desire in terms of being attracted, through biology, right? But the point is saying that our women are at a different status. So the way that we engage with them is completely different, right? And so because the Torah forbid us to be with a prostitute is a woman who lays with a man for money. And so that's not the relationship with a woman. Our relationship is to be responsible for the woman, the opposite of the prostitute, right? The prostitute, there's no obligations to her. You're in you're in and out. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the process. Whereas we're us, no, we have to build a home, we have to build a dynamic. So in order to create that opposite expression, that's where the concept of marriage comes in, right? And so that under that process of going through this whole process of understanding is to say like, oh, okay, well, this is this whole concept of where this marriage comes from, right? And that's a very important part to reflect on, right? Because where does it come from? And now that you even see the non-Jewish world, I mean, they're saying like, oh, well, what do we need marriage for? What do I need to have kids? They got a good point. They're imitating us this whole time, right? And so the concept of elevating the woman and protecting the woman's rights and making sure the woman has all the dynamics past man's selfishness, his ego. Because men, if it was up to us, we'll just be running wild. You know what I mean? But it's the Torah that says, no, we have to take the woman in that desire that we have as men and elevate it to the highest status. The complete opposite. Through the prostitute, you could understand the Jewish woman because it's the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. The relationship as the guy has with the prostitute is the complete opposite as the guy has with the Israelite woman. And so that's the mechanism of or at least the halakhic mechanism of marriage. Now there's another aspect which is more of the Kabbalistic understanding of marriage, right? And so we're going to bring up a point on that. Hold on, and we're gonna get because we got to go through the levels. You know what I mean? We can't just people want us to be basic, but it's like no, we can't be basic. It's like we're allergic to basic. Hold on. People are like, yeah, man, dumb it down. Why you got to go there? Because we got to go there. All right. So let's go a little bit further. Okay. Because this is how you guys would explain it to somebody. Somebody comes to your house and like talk to you about marriage and be like, you could take them through the process of marriage. Like you could take them through it. Okay, so here's a very powerful idea. And I'm not, and sometimes if I challenge what's going on around us, it doesn't mean that I don't love government, okay? And I don't love these things, but we have to challenge it, right? So it says like this is the first verse, right? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'haaretz, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, right? Now, when you look at that, you look at it and you say, hey, you know what? Heavens and the earth, right? Okay, the heavens and earth, okay, makes sense. There's the earth and there heavens. I get it, right? But what's being expressed here is two different energies, right? The heavens is a force of sharing, and the earth is a force of receiving. The body is a force of receiving, and the soul is a source of sharing. Woman represents the energy of receiving, and man represents the energy of sharing. Right? The essence of us, we have essence. Right? A woman receives, a man shares. It's described in our reproductive organs. It's described in our personalities. Men want to be free. Women want to be centered. The whole thing. So this is the dynamic. This is who we really are, right? And I'm sorry to say that we live in a society that wants to put strife between man and woman. So we are more subservient and dependent on the government because they think like the idea is like this. When people talk about male leadership, right? So the way that they do it to us is like this, right? Like we went through this process. You know, my father, my grandfather, he, like I said, he fought in the Korean War, right? During the Korean War was a time where a lot of different social changes were going on. And as time went on, right, and I'm not saying at the Korean War, but as time went on, things like affirmative action and other things started to grow, right, in society, which, you know, could be positive or not. But the reality is that there was a tremendous gap in our community between the men who went away from war and the women who were able to advance in the workforce, right? And in a lot of ways, society has taught our women to look down on our men, right? And the way that they do that is to say, hey, look how efficient the white male is, right? He's organized, he pays his bills, you know, he has a family, he comes home, he goes to work. Look how efficient he is, and he pays my bills, right? And when I'm in college, most of the information I'm reading is pretty much by white men, right? I mean, obviously, I could go into certain cultural studies and they'll bring one, but even the architect of how I even learn people from my own heritage is still by the guise of his reality, right? Meaning white male. But the thing is, it's not like I'm not saying racism, like white versus black. No, I'm just talking about social constructs, right? That's all we're talking about, social construct. So like it's at the point now where the African American sister sees the African American male going against massive levels of psychological attacks, massive levels of attacks in school. Like when we're in school as black men, we are basically targets. You know what I'm saying? Like we are targets inside of schools. You know what I'm saying? Black women who are like, you know, more mild manner, more obedient, they just flow through it. They're honor students. Black men, if you get too loud, you're out of here, bro. Bro, I'm bigger than the teacher at like 13 years old. You know what I'm saying? So it's just saying like the whole dynamic, right? And so the point is saying, so the idea of leadership is not that the man has all the answers. Okay? It's not that man has all the answers. It's about the fact that when that light and vessel come together, when the light and the vessel come together, God's light manifests. It's not like, oh, well, he knows and we got the right thing and we got all the answers. No, it's the opposite. The reality is that no one knows, right? We all are making guesses. But when man and woman come together, God lights manifest. And that requires a man to lead. That requires him to say, hey, here's the direction. Now, Sarah may say, hey, you know what? That's too much. Let's put a limitation here, right? But that's only in the direction of that because God is using the male as a channel. Now, someone will say, oh, well, that sounds like male superiority. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What it is a man humbling himself and saying that I don't know, Hashem, let me guide me and give me inspiration on which way to go. And his wife says, by supporting that dynamic, by connecting to that dynamic, then God's light will manifest. But if they're separated, God's light cannot manifest, right? And so that's the whole concept of like our woman being able to see us and to see that like what we're actually been up against, right? And what type of psychological attacks we've been underneath to keep us in a specific small space, right? And so that's the concept because we're not talking about intelligence. We're talking about unity, right? And so the whole name of the game of marriage is to be able to create a spiritual place where God's presence can dwell. And that's where unification and what we call shalom bayit, right? Peace in the home, shalom, peace in the home, bayit house. When we talk about shalom bayit, we're talking about two people being unified and being able to get to a place of loving each other completely unconditionally. Not because we're so in love and we just, oh my God. No, it's because I love Hashem so much. And I know the more that I love you, and I know the more that I love you, the more that Hashem's presence can be in our life. And I know the more Hashem's presence is here, all of our dreams come true. Right? And so that's where we're going. right? That's the direction. This is rebuilding, or actually not even rebuilding, creating a new type of marriage in America, right? Where we could see that ourselves from a metaphysical level and us engaging with each other on a metaphysical level through intellect, through emotion, through physicality, right? And then be able to see that unification as a mechanism to draw a third additional light into the home that allows us to increase our quality of life. This is the direction, right? So it's not about male and female. There's no one higher than other. We're just playing roles. God is everything, right? And if a man is repenting and he's working on himself and he's building, he's going for that I could trust that. The guy who has a degree from Harvard who makes $3 million a month, I mean, all that is great. Nice. I could buy a lot of clothes. I could go to some place. I could buy a car and everything I saw in the music video. I could live it out. I know you guys aren't holding by that. You guys are deep people, but I'm just saying, I'm just talking to the world right now. I'm saying all that stuff that they promise us. I've never seen a happy celebrity with Gucci or Yves Saint Laurent. I've never seen that. I've never seen a happy celebrity with a Maybach. I've never seen a happy celebrity with a mansion. I've never seen it. I've only seen people who think that if I only had more, then I could get to that happiness, right? So, anyways, Bekitzer, the point is just to say that this is the frame of thinking to think about marriage. It's like, no, marriage is a technology, right? Marriage is a technology, right? And that technology is that technology. Hold on a second. That technology, is here we go. Okay. So, all right. So let's keep it moving. We're going to keep it moving. Okay. So we just dealt with marriage. Kumbaya. We all love each other. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. Okay. So back to this idea of taking control over my day, removing anxiety, lessening anxiety every single day, taking power from the beginning that anxiety is hiding from me. I wake up, I'm starting to use this anxiety. Anxiety is just running. It's like, oh man, she got the technology. He got the technology. Oh man, we can't do nothing today. All right. So it says, Lifi Sheha Adam. Okay. So he says, when arising in the bed in the morning, a person is considered a newly created being to serve the Creator. Blessed be He. Therefore, he must sanctify himself, washes his hands from a vessel. As the Cohen washed his hands every day from the bison located in the temple prior to his service. So you're about to serve God today. We got to serve God. I'm not going to work. Yes, I'm going to work, but all the work allows me to do is interact with people, interact with an employer, interact with myself, and all the other things, and allows me to serve God in these experiences. So when I'm at work, I'm serving God. You know what I'm saying? Even when I'm sitting in traffic, I'm serving God. Now I got to figure out how to do that. Maybe I'll learn, listen, to, maybe some of the classes I'm learning with Rabbi Mordechai and these types of things. But the point is just saying that that idea, right? That idea of being able to take my day and to look at it as a serving God, and to be able to take that same approach as the Kohanim did, right, with his hands, right, before he did sacrifices. This washing is indicated in the scripture as it is said, "I will wash my hands in purity, and I will encircle your altar, Hashem, and proclaim a sound of thanks." There are also other reasons for washing. When a man is asleep, his soul departs from him. We talked about this, right? And the unclean spirit comes and dwells upon his body. And when he awakes in the morning, he is unclean and departs from his entire body from his fingers. From which it does not depart until he pours water on them 3 times, alternatively. And it is forbidden to walk more than 4 amos without washing the hands, except in the case of extreme necessity. So he's saying like this. We talked about this. When you go to sleep, your soul goes up, boom, it's an aspect of death. You have an aspect of impurity, right? We also learned, if you remember, that one part of the body is connected to the whole when it comes to impurity. So if my foot touches a dead body, my whole body's impure. I got to go to the mikvah, right? So when I wake up in the morning, my whole body's impure, but I could fix it through the hands, right? Because the hands are conduit spiritually to the rest of the body because they do so much work for the whole body, right? And so that idea is that, right? So when I wake up, I have this aspect of impurity, so I have to wash it off. I have to wash it off. So it says, Li shabash malbush harishon ed ha talit katan. And he says, the first garment you should don is a small talit. Okay, this is for guys. Women, there's no need to wear talit. And so he says, and walk from up with fulfilled. Me personally, I mean, you could go to any Judaica store and get tzitzit, right? So a person should get tzitzit and have Sephardic tzitzit. And me personally, I and my rabbi, we sleep. Most religious Jews sleep with their tzitzit on. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we're binded by the mitzvah, even we're sleeping, and it's a big protection. However, since you wash your hands, but since your hands are unclean, you should not recite the bracha. Netila yadayim acharit hi varek. He says the the process for washing your hands in the morning is follows. You take the vessel in the right hand, and then you pour it in your left hand, and then you do on the and then you do on the left hand, and you grab with the left hand, and then you pour it on the right hand, and this goes back and forth 3 times, right? So everyone knows this. You know, your husband's an expert at it. And he says it is preferable to wash your hands up into the wrist. However, in extreme circumstances, it's sufficient to wash to your knuckles. And you should also wash your hands in deference to the Creator, as it is said, in the image of God. For in the image of God, He created man. So you should rinse your hands in your mouth and spit it out for you to pronounce the name of God, the holiness and the purity. After this, dry your hands and be careful to dry as well. Sarigla litola yadav ve'dacha letoch kali. So he says, and the hand must be washed only into the vessel. It's forbidden to derive any benefit from that water. So the water you wash your hands in the vessel, do not drink it. I didn't need to say it, but I just wanted to say it because it's just, yeah. You know what I mean? All right. Anyways. So before washing, you should not touch your mouth. Okay, so this is the thing. When the person wakes up in the morning, you got to understand there's a spirit on those hands and those fingers. So when you wake up, the first thing you got to do is wash that stuff off, right? Now, that's what I do in the morning. I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is wash my hands. I do not say a blessing. Then I go and use the bathroom, right? And then if I decide not to take a shower afterwards, which sometimes I do, if not, I'll come out the bathroom or after I take a shower, and then I'll wash my hands again, 3 times again. And this time I will say a bracha because I'm totally relieved everything out of myself. And I'm clean, right? So and then that's what I do in the morning, right? So I will wake up, wash my hands before I go into the bathroom, right? And wash off, just wash the stuff off my fingers. I won't say a blessing. Then I'll go in, use the bathroom, relieve myself however way I need to. And then if I don't take a shower directly after, then I will go back outside after I've cleaned myself from using the bathroom. Then I'll go outside and then wash my hands again and then say the blessing, right? And so that's what he's saying over here. Okay. So, but he said the key thing is the first reason why I wash my hands immediately is because I don't want to touch things. I don't want to touch my eyes, my ears, anything because there's an impurity on your hand. So you don't want to put that on spread it. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want to start rubbing your eyes and your hands are in a state of impurity. You know what I mean? It's not a good look. Or your ears or your mouth or any, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just your hands are not, it's like changing a diaper, right? And then going and like, going like then not washing your hands and then like trying to clean your mouth or something like this, like trying to get like some piece of meat in your mouth out and you're like, yeah, whatever. I mean, maybe it's not the best example. All right, fine. All right, so don't touch anything, right? Because it is what it is. And this is excellence. Okay, we're not like the other nations. We're not taking on other rules. We are priestly people, right? We are prophetess. We are prophets. This is where we come from. So us living in this way, we shouldn't look at it like, oh man, why we gotta do all this? Why can't I just live like everybody else? Because they're on that heathen program. They're on that heathen program, and when people don't see themselves, when people don't see themselves as when people don't see themselves in their right light, they're able to do things that are really bad. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like being able to live in this elevated state, right? And to be like, no, my day matters. What I do matters. I'm bringing light into the world every day. God brought my soul back into this world every day. I'm waking up with abundance. I'm not waking up with lack. God woke me up this morning. He brought my soul there. He already has a plan for me. He's already devised strategies for me. I've already won. He woke me up. If he didn't have my victory, he wouldn't have woke me up. He didn't wake me up to lose. Then, as I accept that, I get up and I immediately remove all impurities from myself. So I start my day in a day of total purity. Who else is thinking like this? People just wake up and they just go, and some people may even have an inclination to want to purify themselves in the morning too. That's why they take a shower, right? So we're taking it to the full extent of that, right? And we're saying like, no, it's not just about the shower. It's about removing the impurities that I can't even see, that the Dove soap can't remove. You know what I'm saying? And it's through my mind that I have the power to remove impurity by using the spiritual technology, right? And me personally, me and my wife, we have a copper cup, because copper is that's the way they used to do it, and that's what they used to have during the times of the temple. And copper is also connected to Israel. So just something to think about. You can order it online. They're very nice, but it has a certain power. But they said it even helps, the copper itself stimulates fertility too inside of women, by the way, right? So, but anyway, so the point is living in this priestly level. And so we have young kids and we're raising them. We're raising them to be excellent, not just academically, you know what I mean, or organized based off of American law, but based off of God's law, right? But based off of the system of God. Yes, we participate in American law. We participate in things, but our organization is God's law, and American and everything else is separate because it changes. This guy, this administration, they locked up a whole generation on weed, and now weed's legal, and and the same people who are locking people up are now making billions of dollars on it. So why am I going to believe their laws? I mean, I'll participate. Mashiach's not here, so we gotta play by the rules. But at the end of the day, those days are going to be over at some point. I mean, I hate to sound like my brothers on the corner, you know what I mean? But there's a truth there. Those days are going to be over. The light's going to come out, and all that deception and darkness and fakery and all that stuff you guys are doing. It's going. I mean, that's for everybody. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, so the point is, we'll stop off here. But just think out this thing of marriage. Like, what is the mechanism? Why did God even want that? Like, what's the purpose of that? Like, why can't we just live? And basically the marriage is there to show the elevation when the nation of Israel was formed of the status of the Jewish woman as it relates to any other woman on earth. Even the laws of purity, right? The laws of the curse of impurity was given to all women, right? Through Chava, right? She received that she would go through menstrual impurity, right? She didn't have that before they ate from the tree. So all women on planet Earth have that. But only the women of Israel are able to free themselves from that by going through the mikvah and by having the laws of the purity of the separation from their husbands and the whole thing. So everyone else is just living in purity. It's all good by them, right? So anyways, so yes, we're living at an elevated status and we're living at a high quality of life. And we should just continue to push on. God willing, we'll see each other tomorrow, and we'll continue to push on. But we got to think this marriage as a mechanism. And then when we see society and we see these social movements of like, yeah, why get married? I just want to be alone. I get it. It was never commanded to you. It was only commanded to us. Anyways, let's keep going. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.